Fallout 76 is a prequel to all the other games, and it's our biggest one yet. But there is one big difference with this game. It's that each of those characters is a real person.
My dream as a kid and a young adult was like to play with my friends in the Fallout universe.
We just kind of enjoy running into different factions, different groups, and spending time getting to know them and what can we create outside of the daily grind of trying to get treasury notes and trying to get the gold.
When 76 was announced and they said, hey, we're putting out a Fallout game you can play with your friends, this idea that like my wife and I can go run around a Fallout world together and do stuff, that sounds crazy.
When I first started playing, for one thing, I found the world really compelling. To being able to emerge from the vault 25 years after not 200 meant for a very different world space to play around in.
It's strange because I've been playing video games for a very long time. This is the first community I've ever encountered like this.
There are certain games for all of us that become highlights of our life. For many, it's booting up Modern Warfare 2 and playing with their friends for the very first time online. For me, it was coming home to find Fallout 3 and realising it wasn't a creepy horror game that my mother bought to scare me. Everyone has that game that gives them that feeling of nostalgia and home. A game that makes them excited to jump back into after they finish work or school. What might shock the average viewer is that Fallout 76 is that game to a lot of players around the globe. Despite the game's bug-filled launch and poor reviews, it grew a loyal and dedicated fanbase filled with role players, content creators and crazy camp builders. What piqued my interest in this particular community was the fact that after all of the negativity, after all of the hate, they stayed and continued playing. Hello everyone, my name is Kieren, and over the course of this documentary, we will only be exploring just a fraction of the Fallout 76 community. Now, with a community that's so vast and filled with life and different personalities, where is the perfect place to start? I decided to take a look at a faction that took up the mantle of the Responders, a faction that you first seen when you left the vault. Now, what group was this? This is none other than the Fallout 5-0.
Just the Fallout series in general has always been kind of something that's interesting with the mix of kind of the Americana from the past with the science fiction, with that just enough the edge of kind of gritty fantasy that's not like over the top, but it's kind of this really nice hybrid. This was just kind of a natural fit for me to kind of take what I already loved about the Fallout series and then what I loved about the concept of, you know, this massive multiplayer online kind of community and the ability to kind of tell your own story in a sandbox.
I'm not really a big MMO player, so it was kind of my first foray into it. But it was the idea that you could just simply kind of go in and do nothing if you wanted to, and just kind of walk around and find people to talk to. When you have little kids running around the house, you have this social interaction that you didn't have before, you know. So I started to realize that, whoa, wait a minute, this has like potential to be whatever we want to make it. So, you know, that's the hook for me, is just that idea that you're not really pigeonholed into one way of doing things in the game, and it seems to be just completely open. We started playing with about five good solid friends at the time, and that kind of is where the 5 came from and the 5-0. But we just, you know, we were all running the same quest together and happened onto the responder quest, and we finished the quest and we all got our responder uniform and we put it on and we snapped a picture and we're like, yeah, we're the cops of the Wasteland or whatever. Literally, that's all it was. And so I popped a picture and I put it into one of, I think Facebook, you know, and I was just like, it's the Fallout 5-0. It erupted into like 200 likes and just a thread of comments of like 80 or 90, just constantly like, oh, we could make factions. We could be our own faction. It was like right at the beginning. Like I'm talking 3 days after launch. I think before people really understood what we could do in the game. Like you could all wear the same uniform. We're all band together.
I guess from there we just started kind of rolling around in the game as this group, this small, just the 5 of us really, for like you said at the beginning, and kind of we would come up on people and we would say, we're with the Fallout 5.0 new responders, and can we help you with whatever it is you're doing? And it just was kind of a lark at first, and then suddenly like there were these kind of spill-off effects where we weren't just doing it kind of a random thing. It was like, let's get on, let's do it, let's walk around, let's see what happens. And the more we did it, the more we had people kind of just join with us and be like, well, I want to do that too.
Even though that was the principle behind it, I think when Todd Howard came up with the concept, but the idea that you could just be that, it kind of caught on. And I'm saying we started that by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it was at a time when it was so fresh that the idea of being a faction in the game was new. So I got a lot of people talking. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. You know, that little high you get when people like your stuff. For me, I'm a big organizer. Like, I mean, I like things compartmentalized. So I was like, it would be really cool if people could interact with the game outside the game, take the game with them. So that's when we came up with the website. And that was kind of the start of the 5.0, was creating that first website where people could interact with us even if they weren't in the game.
In a short period of time, the Fallout 5.0 went from just a group of fans to a collective of role players seeking to expand their 76 experience outside of casual questing and exploration. Their new website brought about many newcomers with their requisition videos that allowed players to be in the world of Fallout without actually having to touch the game. Over the course of time, they seeked a more engaging role-playing experience, one that sought to bring in other role-playing factions. Their mission led to the cinematic event that kicked everything off and sent them down a path of content creation, the Trial of the Warlord.
We have a website, which is kind of like a community hub, and we were like, but you know, we go in the game and we kind of just walk around, but what if we could actually tell some stories? What if we could actually create some sort of events for people that were now a part of us, who were kind of joining in with us?
We put out a 1950s style advertisement for Raiders. Well, we were like, okay, let's find a real Raider group that wants to role play, but also wants to just be a part of a theatrical kind of action adventure. And so we put the word out to these guys. And I think initially the vultures were just going to maybe come in, feel us out a little bit, and then just grief us. Because they said when they saw us come in, they saw us on Facebook, they were like, awesome, we've got a group of cops to beat up on now. But that being said, there was a lot of creativity and a lot of talent in that group as well, and they wanted to create.
To be feared or loved. Feared. Fear lasts longer.
The idea was to have this battle where all of the events in the game actually dictate the story. So instead of writing the story ahead of time, we let the story tell itself. So the Battle of Big Bend was the big pivotal event where our two groups got together, and we fought a real battle inside Big Bend with non-legendary equipment just to give everybody a fair shot. And we ended up beating the vultures, and that created the narrative of capturing the warlord.
The state of West Virginia versus the warlord.
And that was going to be the end of it. And then we were like, wait a minute, we've got warlord. We need to do something with him. So it was like, we happened to know a group that had built a courthouse, and we just went in and started filming. And filming was not something we ever planned to do. It was just a way for us to tell a story. And then we started realizing, wait a minute, this is really a powerful medium I had never even heard of Machinima. And if you watch that first video, it's horrid. It's, limited angles, and it's choppy, and the camera's swinging all over the place. But it sparked the interest. And then we were contacted by Polygon, who said, you guys are really putting a Raider on trial. And we're like, well, yeah, I mean, as much as you can. We're still in the trial, and we're still producing video for it. And the idea is to let the greater community eventually vote based upon all of the lore we are creating on whether or not he should be innocent or found guilty. So, to be determined still.
When it comes to collaborating with other groups, right now, a lot of the collaboration that just simply happens is just organic RP that happens in the game, where we're just happening to be in the world doing something as the 5.0, and then we run into another group and conversation starts and RP kind of follows from there. We already collaborate also with another group called the FSM, the Free States Militia. So we have a Free State group, and so they're part of also the Trial of the Warlord. They're kind of involved with that as well.
Really, it just happens organically at this point. So, a group might come up to us, and next thing you know, we're telling stories. Yeah, that's the main thing, is there has to be story.
With the experience of making the trial into a series of Machinima videos, the 5 wanted to explore more avenues in how to tell the story of their characters. This led to the eventual creation of a brand new series, one that acted more like a traditional television show called Redemption Fall.
Once players come into the 5.0, we want to give them some kind of creative outlet, whether it be voice acting or creating filming and opportunities for that. I thought maybe it would be a good idea to produce a television show that was not like the kind of the HOA style or entertainment from the standpoint of like talk show, but more like a television show, like a production like Walking Dead or some kind of episodic thing like that. So we kind of bantered back and forth, and we were like, what kind of story could we really tell? And then it was like, well, the story of where everybody came from. That's where Redemption Fall was born, with the idea that many of the players that interact with us are telling their story prior to leaving the vault. And then once we leave the vault, we don't know for sure if we're going to continue the series. We know this is at least 6 to 8 episodes at this point.
I write the scripts. I'm the script writer. I have a couple people that help me with certain aspects of the script writing. So it kind of became my job to figure out, well, how do all these characters that role play together in the game actually know each other if they were inside the vault? So part of that initial process was me sitting down with everybody and being like, okay, tell me about your character while they were in the vault. I need to know everything. And so I began to kind of piecemeal, and it wasn't just people in the 5.0, because we also had to think about the people doing things within the game, like the Warlord. He obviously, if you kind of put 2 and 2 together, you can tell he was in the vault. He is part of the Vault series, and you get to see this kind of development of different characters and knowing who they were in the past. Like one of my characters was married to somebody completely different in the past, but now obviously in the present of the Laura 76, she and the commander are obviously an item. So it's kind of, well, what happens between this kind of the situation? And so I had to start to piece things together, and it was really kind of cool to kind of sit down with the different players and ask them, what do you want other people to know about your character from the past? It's very easy in the game to be like, here's the present, here's what my character's going through. But if we could focus on parts of your past, that part of that backstory, why not? Why not take some time to really kind of look at that and determine what sort of relationships existed before they left the vault? Why do some people really hate each other, and why do some people really like each other,
It's like we kind of moved backwards, because we have this whole Warlord thing going on, and it is present day. And we're like, who cares, right? You get players out there that Fallout 5.0 Redemption, we don't care about your character, we care about our character. So why would we want to watch this or whatever? But for those that are interested, it's like, okay, well, how did the Warlord become the Warlord? What was the steps that transpired? So that's why we decided to move backwards instead of just kind of pushing forward with new narratives, because even from the responder standpoint, I was thinking, and toying around with ideas, why not retell the responder story? Because it's such an interesting story. You learn about it in the lore, and there's enough information in the game to put together a film about that. But it was just kind of one of those things where it just didn't seem to be the right time, and it was more interesting to tell the tale of how Commander became Commander.
It began with 500 people from all walks of life.
First one was literally about 15 minutes. That was more or less kind of the ideas going into the game and just kind of capturing the ideas as they happened. Whereas episode 2, obviously we partnered with Pete Hines of Bethesda, and he agreed to star in that episode. So we knew we had to take things up a notch in terms of not only production value, but the way the story was told. And so we kind of got into more of the filming process. I'm not I don't study film, and she's not a professional screenwriter. And it was kind of like watching YouTube. How do you storyboard? What are ways to get good camera angles? Why do you shoot certain angles and you don't? When is the time to transition music and things like that? And so it literally just falls under making an actual film. So we have call sheets, we have storyboards every time. She writes the script, we storyboard it, we go over it with cast, we choose cast, and then now we're into interviewing cast's voiceovers. So It's important now that our quality of voicing starts to increase. We're still probably going backwards to get forwards on it. But the understanding is that we have to follow a very similar process, or else it's chaotic, it's confusing. And as these things grow bigger and bigger, I mean, 30 minutes of Machinima was just a massive amount of work, from just being in game to film it, just to cutting it and getting the scripting down and voiceover. So, that's kind of our target now, is about 30 minutes of full scenes. And it's designed so that I can clip it together as a movie. So you can't really see it yet, but there's things that are left out where I can cut and bring it all together. So the director's cut's going to be the entire thing, which is probably like 4 hours or whatever it's going to be. So the thing we're struggling with is, if we're going to have a struggle, is sound. Sound is, we know nothing about it. I've tried to tap Kenny from the Chad podcast, Kenny, but that's an area. Yeah, that's a struggle area. From the Machinima standpoint, I think I love it, and I love telling stories, and I'm starting to think about ways that, like you guys produced your Machinima, and I don't know if you want me to say what it is, but it's hilarious. Like it's a thing I couldn't do because I just don't have humor. Like I can't. I write. If you notice, it's very dark. It's very foreboding. It's very slow walk. I just like that. But the idea that you can start making film, even recreating an entire film. That's why I love this community, because everybody's just shooting these ideas, and it's like, wow, you can do that? Oh my God, I didn't think about that. I would love to just see it continue, but I think, part of our focus is always going to be using it to bring people into our community for the role play, because that's where we're strongest, is that aspect, which you're not going to really see in the Machinima. But the reason people continue to hang out with us and do stuff is because they really are living these characters inside the game. It gives them a little piece of their own history. Someday when I'm 90 and YouTube is still around, I might click on, oh yeah, I remember we had that channel, and I'm like, oh my God, there it was, So I think, it just ultimately is for fun. There's never been an agenda behind it. If no one even watched it, I would still be doing it, just because it's so much fun. It's, it's a form of stress release and creativity.
It'll continue as long as we're inspired, I think. As long as there's a story that we feel that we can tell, or that somebody, in our community is like, hey, can you help me tell a story? And that's kind of where we're kind of exploring too, is like, what story do you want to be told that we can help you with within our own 5.0 community? And because everybody's got really good stories, but they don't always have the means to convey them, kind of like what you see with the videos and the show and stuff.
Right.
And so that's the way that we can be a part of that and help them to do that.
During their short time, the 5.0 inspired many to go out there to create, go out there to make Machinima, go out there to make their own factions, and they also brought a lot of groups in the Fallout 76 community into the fold in many different projects of their own. One of these groups is the Free States Militia, a group that doesn't really take to the role-playing aspects which many others do. Instead, they take their characters and they explore more of their lore instead of anything else. So, let's take a wee trip over to the bunker side of things and talk to some preppers.
The group started with 3 friends and myself, and 2 of them I knew in real life. I'd worked with one, and one of them has been a lifelong friend of mine. And we started playing together, and we wanted to create a group of some kind. We just wasn't sure what it was. And then after playing the game for a month or so, we were like, man, bunkers, secession from the Union, anarchists running around blowing things up in the wasteland. This is awesome. This is exactly the kind of faction we want to be. And so, to my knowledge, at least on PlayStation, we were the first actual Free States organized group. Military experience kind of helps with the organizational portion, the keeping of records and spreadsheets and all that kind of, all the logistical data, sure. I mean, time in the military definitely helps you learn those skills. They repeatedly beat that into you, but I don't know that I would say that it was what led me to the faction. In fact, when we started the faction, we didn't even have the bundles in the Atom Shop. That didn't come out until months and months afterwards. So we actually have quite a few people in this group who have been military in the past. We've had Marines, we have Air Force, we have Navy, we have Army. Steven that you met earlier was actually in the Russian military. And one of our guys who's also Scottish was in military there. So I mean that might have been part of what created the mindset, but I think it was more of the rugged individualism and just the bunkers and all that cool preppery kind of thing. A lot of us, and I'm gonna preface this now. we're not doomsday preppers, right? You know, that's we're not that fringe. We're just the kind of people in real life who we grow our own food, we hunt our own food, we work on our own vehicles, we work on our own houses. You know, we try not to go out there and rely on other people to do things for us. So I think that was more of what drew us to it. We've had some core members, like Steven and I were both original members of the council. But we have 5 council members, and they pretty much all have individual jobs, and they're more managerial positions than anything. The idea of authority really doesn't appeal to any of us, so none of us are really tell people what to do. We just try to have an environment where we create things that we think people will enjoy, and if they enjoy it, they join it. You know, there's no coercion, there's no forced participation in things. One of the things I think that has kept us together as a faction for all this time is the fact that we have that shared sense of community where if people need stuff, we just make sure you get it. You know, there's no buying and selling with caps amongst us. It's kind of a really beautiful thing because nobody's expected to share, but everybody does, because that collective sense, you know, keeps us working as a team almost daily. We do have a lot of collectivism in our mentality, but it's considered to be a voluntary thing. I have 15 accounts in this game. Only one of them is my account that I play. Everyone else is a mule, and each one of those mules has a name and a job. So I have a mule that I call the Temple, and I go out and I spend a lot of my time in the market of the game itself purchasing high-end weapons, and I just put them all in this mule. And then if anyone in the club is like, hey, Spags, I want to try this. Okay, come over to the mule, let's see what we've got, and we just give it to them, and they go use it. And when they're done with it, they give it back, and then if someone else wants to try it, they can do it. It's kind of a library system, if you will. Steven runs events that are kind of our do-gooder events for the general community. Him and I and a few other people will dress up in the Free States gear. We'll load ourselves up with 3 or 4 sets of low-level excavator and a bunch of stim packs and a bunch of rataway. We'll just run around the map, walking towards the next person we see on the map. And if they're level 50 or lower, bam, we start dropping them stuff. After Foshnot, you know, there was a lot of people who didn't get a chance to grind that event, so we have a mule that's just loaded with all the masks and all the plans. And so if people didn't get that stuff, we'll just go around the map and ask people, hey, did you get everything? Like, no. We'll bring in the mule, let them look through it, and give them stuff for free.
The trial of the warlord is a common reference throughout this documentary, but it did indeed bring a lot of groups together. One group that was key to the whole event was the Vultures Raider Gang, a raider role-playing faction mentioned by the 5-0 earlier on. Funnily enough, it was Bobby's friendship with the warlord that brought the Free States into the fold.
It's a funny story. Okay, so I used to run a page on Facebook called Everything Fallout 76. It was a really good page right out the gate, right? And that's where I met the guy who plays the warlord. I had a photo contest on the page, and I was giving away some power armor and weapons and stuff for a photo contest, and he submitted a photo that ended up winning. So I met him. Through that, I found out that he actually played as a raider, but he was very intent that they didn't play as griefers. They were actually just role-playing as raiders. And so they'll come, they'll mess with you, they're going to PvP you, but they're not going to sit there and be a jerk to you about it in the process. And half the time they ended up talking with people afterwards and becoming friends and all this other stuff. And I was a budgeting vendor at the time. I really wanted to become an in-game vendor. And I said, well, if you guys need someone in the game to vend you, you know, raider armor, trapper armor, raider power armor, weapons, whatever, let me know, and I'll be happy to come give stuff to you guys. And since, you know, I met him on the page, I'm like, your guys will always get a huge discount from what I would, you know, charge somebody else in the game. So I became friends with the Vultures. I became their exclusive. I was the only vendor that they trusted in the game. Well, they had kind of a little civil war in their group at one point. They had a couple people try to mutiny him and take over the group because that kind of stuff happens in raider clans, right? And it didn't work. And at that point, they started then initiating PvP on the Vultures, and the Vultures, of course, PvP'd back. And at that point, I'm like, oh, this is cool. How about, you know, and I decided, you know, because Warlord was my friend in the game in real life, I'm like, you know, I'm not going to do business with the guys who left your crew. I'll only do business with you. And kind of for fun, we ended up actually making a military alliance with them in the game. And anytime that the Vultures got attacked by the defectors, we would jump in and help. And anytime we were getting attacked at a workshop from PvPers, we'd call them and they'd come in and help. And it was a lot of fun, and it was never too serious. You know, we never took it like to the extent some people do, but it was, you know, we kind of relied on each other for help when we needed it. Then this Battle of Big Ben Tunnel happens, and we didn't know that this was all role play. We didn't realize that this was for a film. All we know is that the Vultures and this group called the Fallout 5-0 ended up getting into a PvP battle in Big Ben Tunnel, And then the Fallout 5.0 starts posting all this stuff, how they captured Warlord, how they're going to declare war and wipe out the vultures. And I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, we're militarily aligned with them in this game. So I start typing stuff back on these pages, like, are you sure you want to fight a two-front war? You don't even know who we are. We're the Free States. We own Harper's Ferry. We make the biggest artillery in the game. And it was all for fun. You know, it was never anything more. It was just kind of some friendly banter. Well, then at some point, Ray and Chris decided to bring me into their little movie thing that they were making. And it all started like that, literally. It was just kind of a little series of events, just one little thing happening after another. And now we're all great friends, and we all talk quite frequently, and we make movies together. And it's just been fun ever since. It's definitely been one of the most fun experiences in a video game that I've ever had.
Following in the same mental footsteps as Redemption Fall, the Free States also began thinking of their characters' own backstories. Who were they before the bombs fell, and what were they like during their time in the vault? These questions led to the creation of the Free States lore posts.
Like, a lot of us write our own lore for the game, and we spend a lot of time making sure that it stays true to the lore of 76 itself. You know, we don't stray past the parameters that the game put in place, but we definitely add to it, and we embellish on it a little bit, and we make it our own. And we're trying to refine the process now. A lot of it was just kind of, initially, I would just start writing a story about one of the council members, and that's how I started the lore for the group. I wrote a short story about each council member. At the time there were, how many? I think there were 7. And I wrote each of their, just a little 3 or 4 paragraph thing, and I would have them go take a picture somewhere in the game, and I'd give them some specifics, or I'd allow them to just kind of do whatever they wanted. And they'd take a picture, and I'd write up a bio. This is this person's story, and this is how they came to the Free States. And it was very rudimentary. It was very rough. My very first attempt at writing anything like this. And then some of the other characters were like, well, hey, what about us? And I'm like, okay, we'll get a picture and I'll write your lore. So I'd start their story. And so now almost everybody in the club at least has one lore post about their character. And the initial lore is how they became a member of Free States. And then a few of our characters, we've actually expanded on their stories because they're just really good stories. And so we've written one character, the Scotsman, actually. We've written his character. He's got 7 or 8 installments of his lore, how he came from Scotland over to the United States on an educational visa to come over and work with Vault-Tec University to be an engineer. And he ends up being conscripted into working on the bunker underneath of White Springs, and he realizes that the Enclave isn't what they claim to be. Basically, in his lore, this is all pre-war, he's about to sit down at the White Springs and have dinner with Senator Blackwell from the actual in-game lore. A lot of the lore that we write is centered around the trial of Warlord and the current conflict in post-war Appalachia. Some of them are just ones like, you know, how I move our military around in different parts of the map, what we're doing there, why we're there, the interactions with the vultures. A lot of them are actually my lore being self-reflective, because technically we're a good guy faction, right? And in the lore we're writing, the Warlord was actually chief of Vault-Tec security in Vault 76. Like Camp McClintock, I was a training NCO getting ready to send people off to war. The Vault-Tec guys got into sort of a Lend-Lease program with the Army, where their folks came and trained under us. Ray's character, Commander Johns, was actually also in the military as well. So we all knew each other in a way before the war started. So we've focused on some of that too. And that's why we're still friends post-war, even though he's bad and we're kind of good. But because I also knew Commander John's post-war, which we haven't done too much in that vein yet, but we're going to, there's a constant struggle in my head and the lore that I write of, you know, am I really doing the right thing by siding with raiders to fight this new government, or should I be reaching out to the Fallout 5.0, to the new responders, saying, look, if you were just to leave the government and continue to do what you're doing, but do so free from this new Appalachia government, we would be more inclined to help you and not the raiders. There's a lot of moral struggle in this story that we're writing into it, where everyone kind of is second guessing themselves, and they have this sense of duty, this sense of loyalty, this sense of friendship, and it's really, really good. Like I said, if you get on the page, I think you'll really enjoy some of those posts that we've written. If you wanted to join our group, probably the easiest way is to go onto Facebook and look for the original Free States Militia. I mean, really, that's the only way to find us. We really don't put ourselves out there too publicly, because so many of these larger factions and groups have so much infighting and so much drama and so much really silly stuff that shouldn't be part of a video game. So you can apply to be a friend of the Free States and then be on the page for a while, or you can apply and say, yes, I'd like to join, and then there's 2 other questions below that you would have to answer. Plans for Free States are to continue with the lore with the 5.0 and the Vultures as far as that goes. Continuing the lore of the Free States on our Facebook page is definitely a driving motivation. I've really gotten into writing. I never really wrote before, but now that I'm doing it, I'm finding that I might not be as bad at it as my teachers told me I was.
If you're ever out there exploring the world of Appalachia, you might come across one name in particular, one name that's scattered throughout the Discord servers and the forums, and that name being Chad. And don't worry, it isn't your high school bully from all those years prior, it's actually a name of a podcast show set entirely in 76.
When I first started this, it started with stories, journal stories that I started writing just for the hell of it, that were these characters. And I started posting them on Reddit in the Fallout 76 forums, and they went viral. And a lot of people were saying, you should do something with this, turn it into a machinima or a podcast. And it befuddled me a little bit because I hadn't written anything in 10 years creatively. I'd given up on it and walked away. As I started to put together the concept of a podcast, a lot of my love for vintage radio, classic series like The Inner Sanctum, The Whistler, that era had an amazing way of painting very vivid pictures with sound alone. The original writers of those stories and the people who produced the sound effects for those were geniuses at being able to get you to visualize a scene without any sort of video support at all. So it was important for me to capture that kind of a feeling, to be able to paint a scene in people's minds with sound alone, but update it a little bit, make it more cinematic and the humor more approachable, which is why it's kind of a weird synthesis humor-wise of like South Park meets Monty Python. There are some elements of British comedy in there. There's some elements of very in-your-face American-style humor.
Begin recording. If someone other than me is listening to this, things didn't go according to plan, and I've likely been permanently atomized, with no chance this time of resurrection.
Late one night while we were playing Fallout 76, we were in the high school in Morgantown. And as we were going through, we'd had a few drinks and started to reminisce about high school years. The more we talked, the more we realized that all of us knew someone in school named Chad, who was the typical jock, douchebag, bully kind of persona, the meme that has some truth to it. So the more we talked about our version of Chad's, the more I started to think about what happens when you leave school. Normally, until the advent of the internet, once graduation came around, you walk out those doors with your diploma and your silly hat and your gown, and you don't see most of those people ever again. When I started to think about what would happen for some of these 76ers, you start out in the vault and you emerge and you go do your own thing. What would happen if the vault was kind of like a school experience where you're born in the vault, you grow up in the vault, you have this conflict between these characters, Chad and Simon, the character I play. And, you emerge into Appalachia, and as large as the world space is, you keep running into each other. So you're quite done. And that starts to create a bit of a conflict that started this show. When I originally came up with them, I came up with the characters themselves. A lot of them come from an organic place. Chad is kind of a synthesis of the person I knew in school with kind of the stereotypical Chad type. Susie and her little doll, Ella, who have become two of the most terrifyingly beloved characters in the show, came from a really weird place. I dreamt the scene where she takes over a lemonade stand, kills the Mr. Handy, cuts his arms off, damages his voice box. So he just existentially spends the rest of his life with the processor still ticking over, but unable to move or communicate. And she just ends up poisoning a bunch of people. So that scene with her, this little ghoul character, and this talking doll came to me in a dream. It was so vivid, I knew that I had to make that work. The creation of Ella, I had something very specific in mind. If you've ever heard Edison's talking dolls, Thomas Edison, for a short period of time, had created the world's most terrifying talking dolls. They were kind of revolutionary in their day. They had a wax cylinder built inside. If you ever get the chance to listen to some of the samples of that, it is complete nightmare fuel. Like there's one talking doll that had "Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep," but it's all broken and twisted, and the doll is like falling apart. Finding Chad was something that took me the longest because I had something very specific in mind for that. Alexander Luther, who lives in England, responded. And I'm thinking, okay, how well can a typical jock from the United States be done by an English fella? And he completely nailed it. We went through a few different versions of the voice before we found the right mix and balance. And it's kind of a combination of California Surfer Bro with a little bit of Matthew McConaughey and a tiny bit of Southern drawl for a voice that's very specific. And it's exactly what I was looking for.
Rather quickly after its release, the Chad podcast blew up in popularity, gathering over 150,000 listeners across various platforms. The attention this little podcast show was getting eventually caught the eye of Bethesda, who reached out to Vigu about a possible endeavour.
When this all started, at some point just after, Alex Kane from Forbes had done that article on the show. Even though they'd been paying attention, at that point when the Forbes article hit is when people started really taking notice of the show, including Bethesda. It started with some of the community managers following me on Twitter, which as soon as I saw that, I was like, and out of the blue, one of the community managers contacted me with a what if scenario. They were planning Bethesda Game Days and had wanted to include a community element this year and wanted to see if there was a possibility of us doing some version of the podcast at Game Days. So I went through a series of emotions. First, there was shock. Then I talked to the cast, and since the show is audio completely, I didn't think like anyone would want to sit through a 1 hour show with just a waveform on a screen. I was also concerned about people who knew the characters, if they would be thrown by seeing us in person, because you build up a vision of the voice attached to the character. And then when you see the person behind it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. So our regular episode wasn't going to work. I came up with the idea of doing a trial episode that we would do on stage, wrote up the script, pitched them the idea. The community manager went to the team at Bethesda, to Pete Hines and everyone, to present the idea, and then emailed me back. It was like 7:30 on a Friday night and said it's greenlit. And I'm not gonna lie, I cried. When you fail at achieving something that you want to do and you kind of walk away from it, and then you come back to it, and not only does it mean something to people, but they care enough to want to make you a part of something bigger, was something really emotional for me. So once that started, I talked to the cast. They all completely lost it. We had to keep it completely under wraps. They wanted to keep it really close to the vest. We wanted to keep the fact that Pete Hines as a character in the show was going to be a surprise, because we wanted the moment where he would just walk out on stage in a judge's outfit and have everyone kind of be like, what the hell? It was interesting meeting everybody that day. I mean, we immediately clicked. They had come in earlier, so they got a chance to go out and get drunk together, singing Country Roads, doing karaoke. All of Game Day was just really an amazing experience. All of the people at Bethesda were super nice, very accommodating. We got a chance to really mix and mingle with everybody, hang with everybody. The food was magnificent. They had themed cocktails that were also really, really good. The people that were there absolutely blew up, enjoying it. And when Pete came out on stage, it got the reaction that we were hoping for. The audience of the show multiplied by 4 times in the next 60 days after that. So we took off. Well, not for nothing. It's also remarkable for a couple of reasons. For one thing, Bethesda historically doesn't get involved in fan projects. There's been a few times that some of their voice actors or their higher ups in the company will take part in something for charity. Like going back to the Storyteller series. I don't know if you ever saw those in the old days. Like Wes Johnson came on and did his Super Mutant, and there was some real tie-ins there. But for the most part, the company hasn't opened themselves up to working outside with the community before. So I think it was an interesting test case. And because it went well, I'd like to think that opened the door a little bit more for them to connect more with the community. And I think we've seen that over this past year. We've had Pete Hines on again. I did a Wastelanders launch party with him, Oxhorn and Juicehead. That went really well. And more recently now, they started doing community showcases monthly that they're going to feature on the website and in their social media, as well as doing camp showcases. So people are going to send in pictures of their camps, but they're just going to start resharing them.
Outside of the Chad podcast, Vigu is a very community-based player, usually going out of his way to get involved in the community, lend a hand wherever he can. Vigu was even a part of the 5-O's Trial of the Warlord, and even voiced the narrator in Redemption Fall. He even organised a fundraiser for Doc C.J. Martin after a fire burnt down his home, raising over $10,000, and he doesn't stop there when it comes to community involvement.
There's a few different things that I've done or done with other people. When Fallout first came out, there was a backlash, to say the least. A part of it was some trolls had started announcing that they were going to target Fallout First players. And there were some instances where people with the Fallout First icon or who were doing the emote dances that were only associated with Fallout First were being targeted by toxic PvP players. Around that same time, a group called the Apocalyptic Aristocracy had started with a few different members from EAT, the establishment of Appalachia Taste Testers, which is a Fallout 76 cannibal faction of all things, but is actually one of the oldest factions that was recognized by even Todd Howard himself. So they'd created the Apocalyptic Aristocracy as kind of an inside joke, like we have $12.99 more a month than the average person. So, clearly we're eating caviar and enjoying martinis. Immediately loved the idea, got involved with that and created the logo for the group, got people in, helped build awareness. And now for the most part, the Discord community that we have there has become quite a bit of a family. That group now serves, especially these days, have been slowly turning it into a hub to bring the community together more. So we have faction leaders in there from all different Discords and groups and role-playing groups, content creators in there promoting their content. We try and keep drama at the door, which is one of the very few rules that I have. Unlike other groups, I don't care what people share, if they're creating stuff, if they've created original stuff, if they have other Discords that they want to invite people to, people can share whatever they want. The only rule that I enforce is no drama, which I think you see in a lot of other Discords where there's toxic arguing or just nonsense, ridiculousness, conflict between people. Anybody's welcome to join, but we keep it free from all of that garbage because I think we see enough of that on Facebook every day. You don't want to see that when you come to a community because that's the very first thing that will turn you off from staying in that community. We want a respite from all of that crap, a place where we could just have a laugh and hang with friends and mates and have a good time. More recently, I started a writers' campfire group. The goal with that, because the show took off and I've learned a lot, if anything, I'd love to see Fallout have more content, more fan creations like that. So I want to see more machinimas like the Fallout 5.0 have been doing. I want to hear more cool, unique, and original storytelling podcasts. So the writers group I started to bring people together who can write, have the interest in writing and building a show, but don't know where to begin. So we started that, and several shows are now in development that are going to be coming out shortly, which are going to be very, very good. A lot of them vary from audiobook style original fiction to some more kind of twisted humor, other ones that follow the lives of a raider that are darker and grittier. It's going to be some impressive content. So we've been doing that. Got a lot of people thinking about creating their own podcasts, which I've been a big fan of. The Omega Broadcast is another podcast that is going to be in the same kind of universe that has their own stories. So we'll be doing some crossover there in the same way that I do with the 5.0. I enjoy finding ways to be an asset to the community because for me personally, it's given me something that I thought I'd lost. So I feel a real need to, wherever I can, if I can be helpful to someone or connect people or give them an idea or an inspiration or whatever the case may be, I try and make myself available to do that.
Kenneth wasn't the only one out there making podcast shows. There was the Omega Broadcast, which he mentioned before, which took storytelling and turned it into an audio drama. Now, there was also another podcast that was mentioned as well, the Fallout Hub, which has 3 people, 3 guys, sitting down, talking Fallout, talking about 76, and more specifically talking about the community as well. To dive further into this sort of podcast, to dive further into the Hub, we must delve deeper into the Robots Radio Network.
I've always been the kind of person who has never been fully satisfied with my day job. I've had a variety of different careers. I've kind of changed careers. A number of years ago, I was trying to do the Twitch streaming thing, and I was streaming 5-6 hours in the evenings after working a full-time job 6 nights a week in order to try and get a channel up and going. This was like 2014, I think. About 6 months into this, a company I worked for it was a major corporation, went through a corporate merger, and the other company that got merged in gutted the system, right? As happens. They got rid of all of everybody in my position. And I was in a very nice position, making good money. And I went from that to just getting laid off. A few years later, I started podcasting. My first podcast was it was a Dungeons and Dragons show called the Dire Solutions League, which was absolutely silly. It was a ridiculous game of Dungeons and Dragons I played with my friends. But that's where I kind of cut my teeth with the whole producing a podcast, doing all the audio. I'm also a musician, so I had spent some time doing audio work in the past as well, touring in a band when I was in my 20s, that kind of thing. That podcast lasted about 6 months, and I stopped doing it. Another year and a half go by, and I decide, you know what? Fallout 76 had recently come out. I'm a big Fallout fan. I love the Bethesda games in general. I considered doing a Bethesda podcast. Couldn't really find a friend to do it with. Considered doing a Fallout 76 podcast. And I figured out, and it's weird to have these moments of like revelation, but I learned that interesting, smart people are also really busy. So it's hard to find interesting, smart people to be guests or to guest host a show with you. So I decided I was just going to start a show by myself. And what else could I do it on that would be something I can talk about on my own? And that's when I was like, you know what? The lore would be really interesting, especially because I don't know everything about the lore. So creating a regular weekly show was an excuse for me to dig into the lore, to learn more myself so I could present it to other people. And as we know about education, you learn things best when you can teach it to somebody else. The focus of the show from the beginning was, I want to create a conversation. I want to create a community of people who can talk about these things, discuss them, share their input, share their experiences, because the games are huge. Not all of us have played every little bit of every game. In fact, none of us have played every little bit of every little game. When I got started, I did a lot of initial research. I spent about 3 weeks prepping to do the show. And I dabbled in that stuff. I'd watch guys like Oxhorn, The Storyteller. There's a lot of good content out there about these kinds of topics, and they're all related in different ways. And that's kind of what I thought was interesting too. Not only getting the information, but the way each creator frames the content is different. Somebody like The Storyteller creates kind of this fun role-play sort of in-universe machinima thing, right? Somebody like Oxhorn talks like somebody who's, like the cool teacher taking you on this journey about this story. And, oh, look at over here. And then we discovered this thing. And he's got that kind of flavor to it. And so I had to come up with my own flavor. And by about the 3rd episode, I'd kind of nailed the way that I wanted to present things.
With the experience of various podcasts behind him, Tom finally sought to make that 76 podcast he's always wanted to do. Accompanied with Kenneth from Chad and Dave from Mystery Time Live, they created the Fallout Hub, a podcast centered around news and community interactions within Fallout.
We got together because I was fans of what they were producing. Somehow Ken and I found each other, and I stumbled onto, I believe it was his first episode he did, and he put it out on YouTube. And I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. I was like, I need to work with this guy. This is great. Like, this is exactly the kinds of creators that I want to be working with. And so I reached out to him and he was like, yeah, let's work together. And I was like, okay, awesome. The Vault Boys WV I had been listening to before even starting the Fallout Lorecast. And that's how I came to know Dave. I had reached out to him, had him guest on the show, that kind of thing. Eventually he joined the network as well. Because of all the negative publicity that Fallout 76 got when it launched, there was a lot of negativity around it. So a lot of people ran away or they just weren't into the game enough to really be creating content around it at the time. So there was kind of a void there. I continued to play it some, and Ken and Dave absolutely continued to play it all the time. I'm constantly divided between multiple games, as you can tell, but that's my personality. I jump between them. But they were like super into Fallout, and they're like, guys, there's nobody doing this. Why don't we get together and talk about, you know, the new patch updates and things like that. We have been making and growing connections with Bethesda. We are by no means behind the scenes. We're by no means employed or supported by them in any way. But in getting to know them, like we've interviewed Pete Hines. We've talked, you know, some of their people behind the scenes. Or Chad, the Fallout 76 show, got to perform at Bethesda Game Days, and I got to go do that with them. So we have some contact with them. It seems like everybody's not everybody, but everybody out on the internet was watching the YouTubers who are trying to make a buck by saying negative things about Bethesda because that gets clicks. And everybody out there is saying, sucks. Bethesda's going down. They're making all the wrong decisions, blah, 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 blah. And everybody was complaining. And we were noticing, due to our connections, that they were changing, that the changes that they were implementing in the game were listening to the community. And the ways that they were reaching out to us and other community people, they were doing it right. They were doing right. And I actually put out a video on my YouTube channel that said, will 2020 be redemption for Bethesda? ? And I predicted, this was before Wastelanders came out, and I didn't get an early build of the game. Some people did. I didn't get it. Feeling the pulse of things, I was like, this is going to change it. People are going to get Wastelanders, and they're going to realize that Bethesda is listening to the community and they're doing things differently. They've been improving things. It's a little bit slower than some people want for some of the PvP stuff, but they're listening to the community. They're moving in the right direction. So it made sense. I'll wrap this all back around. It made sense for the three of us to say, you know what? This is something we love, and it's going to get better.
It's been some time since Vault 76 opened its door. And we all discovered that Appalachia isn't quite what it used to be. We encountered a lot of things. Overcame a lot of things. I don't think any of us expected for people to actually come back.
Are you?
Yeah, Wastelanders we knew was going to be a huge thing. Ken was in the group that got in there, and he couldn't tell us anything about it other than this is going to be great. Like that was basically, that was all he could say. So we knew that was going to be a thing. We had started the Fallout Hub a month or two before that event, and it just made sense. We were like, okay, this is going to be the thing everyone's talking about. We need to jump on this. We followed up with Pete Hines after doing Bethesda Game Days. And basically, and it was Ken again, he just kind of threw it out there. He was like, hey, we're gonna be talking about Wastelanders. You want to come on the show? Sometimes things work out well for Pete. Sometimes interviews go well, and sometimes people take things out of context and things are tough. He has a very difficult job, so he's a little bit careful about, you know, who's gonna guest on their show or, you know, join them for an interview. And that was really cool to get him on there and have that perspective as well. And it also comes from the whole business marketing thing. Like, if something big is gonna happen, then we have to hit it with something big. We can't just be the three of us talking about it again, right? We need to get other people that people know, that people are going to want to hear their opinions. So, you know, guys like Oxhorn and Juicehead, and then Pete Hines. It just made sense to bring everyone together to do something like that. My heart for Fallout lies in exploration, in looking at the environments and looking at the pieces of the puzzle as I'm uncovering things, and not necessarily always the conversation I'm having with the NPCs. So it didn't bother me too much that there weren't really NPCs other than like robots running around. I got what I wanted out of that exploration part of it. What did surprise me though was once you added those NPCs in, how the world just all of a sudden feels more alive. There's something about it in our psychology, just seeing other people walk around, that all of a sudden this feels like a living, breathing place. And it's, I don't know. I don't think I expected to have as positive a reaction to simply that little detail. I think it's amazing. I think that they solved issues that I wasn't sure were going to be solvable, primarily making NPCs work in a world like that. It's not built like an MMO. People call it an MMO sometimes, but it's not built like Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, they had to figure out how to instance NPCs into the game in ways for you to interact with them for your quest line, but for that to not ruin your buddy's playthrough. They had to make people walk around in the environment again and make them interesting. They even incorporated NPCs that now live in your camp. So they had to do a lot of things to make that work. They also had to go back to writing quest lines with dialogue and voice acting and multiple options on voice. There was a lot of work. I do know they went over budget on it. They pushed harder to get this out than they even planned to do. And I think it's absolutely a win. I think it will set the tone for where this game goes and evolves in the future. Technically creates a foundation that they can continue to build off of. The people who work at Bethesda are actually fans of our content, and specifically the Chad Fallout 76 podcast. Because I mean, you work at a company like that, you're proud of what you do. You see if there's podcasts about it. Somebody came across the podcast and then shared it with other people, including Pete himself. And it's one of those things where they will listen to the new episode and then they'll get to work and they'll all talk about it and laugh about some of the jokes in the episode and things. So the show itself became something that they absolutely loved. They're real people. The guy who worked on the writing for the quest line on this, when you give it a little bit of a nod in your show, all of a sudden he goes, hey, that's cool. They noticed my quest. That's a funny joke. It makes you feel good because you want people to like what you work on. And they reached out to us because they were like, hey, we love what you're doing here. This is really smart and funny. Maybe there's something we can do together. And we were like, yeah, let's talk for sure. So that's how that started. So it would be really cool to have developers on to talk a little bit behind the scenes about what is the patching process like? What was it like turning the engine from a single player game into a multiplayer game that was never designed to do this, and trying to make it work, trying to improve it over time, talking to their marketing people about what is it actually like having to, deal with a product that is put out early on purpose, isn't 100% ready, knowing that it's not going to be ready, and getting ready for the deluge of people saying, this sucks, you released something that doesn't work. For the Lorecast, man, I would love to get Todd Howard on. Would be amazing, right? He's behind the scenes on all this stuff. He's involved with all the details in the lore. It would also be really interesting to talk to some of the original writers from Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. The series didn't start with Bethesda. It started with other people. So who knows? Maybe that would be a thing. They're not as plugged into that anymore because that's not really their baby these days. But who knows? Maybe something like that could happen at some point.
Unlike most, Tom primarily plays alone when wandering around the wastes, although this has inspired his creativity. He created a robot companion who he banters with when role-playing, and even using his solo adventures in Fallout to be a part of his podcasts.
I enjoy playing with other people. That's one of the reasons why I created the content to begin with, was that I call them my real life meat friends, like meat flesh body friends aren't always into the same games I'm into and these kinds of things. So having a community of people to play with is always something I've wanted to grow. So I do enjoy playing with other people. I find though that because I'm a little bit more introverted, that after a certain amount of time, it becomes taxing on me. As much as I enjoy it, at some point I need to retreat into just doing my own thing. You'll also see that a lot of times when I play, especially when I'm streaming, I'm often trying to get through something that's entertaining for the audience, and having a bunch of people on a stream all chatting and stuff about things that the audience isn't involved with, to me feels disconnected. I would rather do a solo playthrough of a section and comment on it and talk directly with my audience while I play it. When it comes to these other communities that are out there, like getting involved with the 5.0 and those kinds of things, I haven't done a lot of that because I know that once I step into that, I will be sucked into it. And some of what they're doing is so cool that that's going to take over. And I don't have a lot of extra time. It's really a time management thing. It's not a lack of a want. Once I start doing all of those things, I'm gonna end up being late on delivering episodes and those kinds of stuff. I need to continue the treadmill and make sure I'm getting my content out, because that's what people are coming to me for in those things. So, and also having things like patrons for my episodes, I can't let them down. I can't just not put an episode out. I feel bad. They're paying for the content. So I always have to put that first. As a creator, and you probably feel this way too, there's always a new idea on the horizon and you're like, that sounds fun. It's like the meme with the guy holding the girl's hand and looking over at the other girl. It's like, I've got all these other things, but look at that over there. One of the things I'm now working on is doing, I don't know if you know Tuniversal. He streams Fallout 76. He's a good buddy too. He does Fashion Wars, and Ken and I got to guest and join him for the big 4th of July Fashion Wars. I was one of the judges and co-hosts for that. And that was so much fun that it got me thinking. I was like, I could do something like that with Elder Scrolls too. So I think we're going to have some guild events where we do some Fashion Scrolls Wars or something like this. I haven't come up with an official name.
Tom, Kenneth, and Dave have definitely risen in popularity over the last few months. Their relationship with Bethesda continues to grow as they held a special Fallout Hub show during QuakeCon 2020, which highlighted various community projects and machinimas. One of those community projects is the United Wasteland Network, a Twitch channel that functions more like a traditional TV channel than anything else. But what's more interesting about this specific network isn't its present, but it's more its past, and trouble past at that. So let's dive into not only the rise, but the eventual downfall of the HOA.
There was a time, even my job, really stressful, and I needed to talk to somebody. I just needed somebody to hang out with, and I sent one text in Discord, and I said, I just need a small group, private, play now, 76. And within moments, small group was on 76, and we were just hanging out and playing, and it saved me from a really dark night. My biggest memories was when Bethesda retweeted one of my tweets, and it changed everything for me. I only had like 35 followers, just my friends and stuff. And I was just using Twitter to just post, my game stuff. I had built this camp, and it was right there at the base of 76. And it was aimed at helping new players coming out of the vault. I would make them armor. I'd put armor in the little public storage containers. It was right there at the pond, all this other stuff, right? And this was a tweet that I had posted. And Bethesda saw it and retweeted it, and Fallout retweeted it, and my life changed forever at that point. Literally overnight, Vault-Tec Medic went from just 35 followers to, 1,000? It's crazy. I mean, I like to do cosplay and stuff too, and I do Fallout cosplay. Right? But, I mean, still, I'm just a burned out paramedic life, in small town USA who just loves playing Fallout. And it was overwhelming. It really was kind of a tough adjustment. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. I was out there looking for a new site for my build, and all of a sudden this group of people come, like a flash mob by me. Like, oh my God, what's happening here? I recognized Cherry Pixel from the photo mob. And so I actually had met her before going into the HOA. I had interacted with the HOA because I had seen stuff that it was just Boss Daddy and Mac Fraggins at first. And they were doing like little videos. They had done this game called Trivia or Death. They did it on PlayStation. And I was like hooked. And I was one of the first camps that they evaluated on Xbox when they came over to Xbox. And then we just built this rapport and relationship. And then when it was starting to get bigger, going multi-consoles, Boss Daddy, he was looking for people to kind of represent and be agents to be able to cover all the stuff.
The HOA was among the first groups to properly stand out in the community, to not only the players but to Bethesda as well. This was due to their creative nature and unique idea to uphold the mantle that was Appalachia's camp standards.
That actually started with Boss Daddy and Mac Fraggins. They were actually just playing 76, and they would just go around and see people's camps, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at this, violation, and then they, out of funny or joke, they're like, we'll be the HOA. Now we're gonna violate according to the HOA guidelines, or approve or whatever. It just started as like a little joke. I mean, I would even go around my personal time and just be like, hey, oh my gosh, look at this camp. Why are you building this floating box? Ah, the horror, you know? But that's what they were doing. And people just started picking up on it. And then they decided to stream it on Twitch. They had some followers that would watch. And then they got on Twitter and was posting all this stuff. And that's originally how I first saw. And then they built this theater. It was called the Palace of Mediocre Art. I was like, oh, these guys are funny. And then they did the Wasteland's Got Talent show. It had Hammered Super Mutant on there. It had Proxy Tato. And it was so funny. And I was just like, this is great. They were doing the camp evaluations. And then, more people wanted to do that too. And they were just strictly on PlayStation originally. And because they were getting so many requests, Boss Daddy didn't have an Xbox. Mac Fraggins did. Mac came over first. They're like, we kind of need some help. I know they reached out to me, I guess, because I was following them and a big supporter of them and felt like I would be good for it, I guess, which I appreciate. Each person had their individual things, I guess, quirks or things they were better at. But we all together, we made a really good team.
One thing the HOA stood out for multiple times was their festive events. Alex Kane from Forbes even wrote multiple articles highlighting the HOA's activities. And one that stood out to me the most was when they Christmas caroled to random players.
How it worked was he rewrote lyrics to classic songs, Christmas carols. And what it was that people could make a donation. They could say, kind of like a singing telegram kind of thing. Oh, okay, can you guys go sing at so-and-so's camp? But it would be awful. It was the whole, shtick, I guess, of it was that we're going to sing these awful lyrics that people loved it. And they were making donations left and right. Not so much for us to sing at camps, for them too. They wanted us to sing for them.
Creeping through the mire, slow as I can be. Damn, these holiday gifts are over encumbering me.
Bells on Santa's scorch ring, making my spirit bright. But if I don't script some of this shit, I'll be dragging ass all night.
I remember one, it was a rando. Just came across him in our little adventure and everybody was like, here, I'll drop $20. Sing for the rando. Sing for the rando. And the rando was like, I don't know what's going on here. Okay. He just stood there. He's like, all right. I mean, it was really fun. We were having people ask us later for the lyrics. Can I get the lyrics to that song? It was like, wow. I mean,
I'm just imagining the one guy standing there and being like, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And he continues on with his quest.
Right, yeah. No, he was there was a new player. He's building his first camp. And of course, we ended up giving him some presents, some plans and stuff like that. But yeah, here comes this group of people. At first, he drew his weapon. I guess he thought anybody would when you see a group of people come up on you. We got him in the area chat and we explained who we were, what we were doing. The viewers have paid for us or have made donations for us to sing you a Christmas carol. Is that okay? He's like, yeah, I guess so. I mean, it was just stuff like that. It was just silly and fun, and people enjoyed that. They enjoyed a silly and fun place because the real world is just terrible. So you come to the wasteland for an escape, and then you have people that are making you laugh. It was nice.
In early 2020, the HOA announced that they would be taking a 2-week spring break, but this break led to the complete cancellation of the group. One day their social media was shut down without a word, leaving a lot of fans both disappointed and confused to the lack of reason to the HOA's unexpected demise.
Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the real world. It's changed a lot of things for us at home. For instance, like my daughter wasn't going to school, and so she's with me 24/7. I couldn't work because I couldn't find anybody to babysit. So there was that. Of course, not me, but like I know Boss Daddy's and his kids were with him all the time. And I know we were trying to work with things and, trying to make schedules work. And I don't know if it just became overwhelming. especially with the sudden boost. All I know is, see, I was in Florida. My dad was like, let's go, just come down to my house and escape, at least have some different walls to look at. And I mean, thought everything was fine. Last episode of Bitching with the Bosses, it was like, whatever happened, it was like, he's like, I'm done, I'm out, you guys can carry on the project. That was the plan, was that we were going to take 2 weeks off. I think we made a Twitter post about it, that we were going on summer break for 2 weeks. What we were doing was actually going to be planning the restructure and everything else. The first week, that's what we were trying to do. We just couldn't on terms of how to continue the HOA. And so that's when the agents, we all mutually agreed to just separate ourselves from the HOA and start a new project. Kind of carrying on what the HOA was doing for the community, but with a little more variety and a little different twist, because obviously we can't the same exact thing, similar things, but we did want to continue for the community, because as much as a shock as it was to the community, you can believe it was a shock for us too. We kind of knew it was happening, but we were trying to fight to keep it.
Your new platform is like a spiritual successor to HOA?
Yeah, pretty much. Like the spin-off or something, we have schedule planned out. We've got different shows we have planned. Gives each person a chance to showcase their individual talents. It's going to be a little bit different, and it's not going to be as hectic as the schedule was with HOA, because it just seemed like we were streaming all the time. Everybody, every night. It's becoming exhausting. As much as I like streaming too, I mean, it really does take a lot out of you. We had a strong following. And so to just cut it like that, I mean, I felt so awful. Oh God, I felt awful how the community just dealt the news. It was not supposed to go that way. We did not agree to that, but we've got a plan right now. And even the Discord, I changed the Discord to United Wastelanders Network. So that way, because we wanted to keep it a network, because we're going to be showing a variety of stuff. It's not just going to be camp evals or anything like that. It's wide variety, like a TV network. A lot of different things, and we were planning on showcasing other people and doing all this other stuff, because that's what we do. We look out, we support each other. That's what makes this community so strong.
Despite the HOA's death, it led the former members to become more creative with less restraint, and after watching one of their broadcasts myself, I must say that I was pretty damn impressed by the quality of their network. So if you're interested in making some content or advertising a bit of your own content, you know where to find the United Wasteland Network. Roleplaying is a major part of the Fallout 76 community. Chances are, when you're going around the Discord servers, you may have encountered one or two of these so-called factions. But we've only really took a tiny glimpse at the world of roleplaying with the 5.0. Now I think it's time to give it a proper look with not one, but two role-playing factions. The intimidating soldiers over the Enclave Armed Forces and the ever-peaceful vampires at the House of Requiem.
My character is General Grey Fox of the Enclave Armed Forces, and what the Enclave Armed Forces is all about is it started off as a top-tier PvE, PvP raid community. Since then, it has grown into a major RP group that focuses not just on Fallout 76, but we focus on gaming culture as a whole, with a focus on Fallout, though. We train real-life skills, leadership skills, communication skills from various different sources and universities. But we mostly focus on a nice, healthy, stress-free area for everyone to get together and have a positive influence in their life. And that usually takes the form of RP and Fallout. I'm retired now. I finished my term of service and all that. So now I'm home as a part-time writer. I'm trying to write my first novel. The RP and the narratives and stuff in Fallout really became part of my creative process when I'm trying to work on stories and narratives for a book I'm trying to write. Fallout is just a wonderful thing. So if I had like a writer's block or something, coming and playing Fallout and really being inspired by the beautiful world that Bethesda created helps me as a creative person. So I started playing a lot of Fallout, particularly 76 when it came out. And where the EAF came from, if you look online, there's 1,000,001 Enclave groups. So started the Enclave Armed Forces as an homage to the real life military that I served with, which is the Canadian Armed Forces. And just like Canada, we kind of geared ourselves to be more like a peacekeeping force. At least that's what the public sees in our narrative. How it began was I played my first 50 plus levels alone because I couldn't find anyone worth playing with or competent, I guess you could say. I loved playing with people, but I couldn't find anyone to kill the queen with. Or I couldn't find anyone to, like, say, do a Vault 94 group or whatever, right? After I joined a bunch of Enclave groups, they just weren't getting the job done. So I said, well, you know, if you got to do it right, you got to do it yourself, I guess. So I made mine. The biggest thing, though, with the Enclave is that I find their backstory fascinating because they're like a technocracy with a dystopian Orwellian 1984 or Brave New World kind of like thing. If there's anything that's crazy, so it started off as PvE, PvP, just to train some people, and we had a lot of success. And after we completed everything the game had to offer, and we decided, well, what's next? And then we started running into some very wonderful people. Our first allies were a group called the Brotherhood of Steel Appalachian chapter. They've recently rebranded as well. And it just kind of grew from there. And every time we hit a level of advancement, we turned around and we had to find a new avenue to conquer, I guess you could say.
One of those avenues Fox mentioned is organised role-playing. After being shown some materials about the faction structures and activities, it's definitely become one of the more prime RP communities.
EAF has run into a bunch of firsts. There's a lot of really good communities out there, really, really good. But we wanted to play to our strengths. And one of our strengths is, okay, so we're not as big into the lore as Oxhorn, okay? We're not as big into streaming as Juicehead. We're not as big into filming as, let's say, the 5.0. So we said to ourselves, how are we going to make a name for ourselves? And that answer came down to professionalism and foundations and structure. So our goal was to be the singular best structured and managed community. And that was our single goal. And of course, obviously, to have fun playing the game. Now, as we've broken into different groups, this structure has given us several advantages over other communities. When it comes to raid content, we tried working with other groups, but a lot of times they just wouldn't show up. Same thing happened when it came to roleplay. We started roleplaying with some groups, but people had these outrageously fantastic roleplays. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, and eventually that evolved into like Pathfinder and Rifts and D&D 5.0 or whatever it is now. We wanted to start breaking into that, but quickly we found that there was no big defining group that really did it. Now, the 5.0, to me, is the best role-playing group on any platform for RP, hands down. And so we had the opportunity to start working with these people, and the Chad podcast as well. Chad came to us, actually, and said they really liked a newspaper that we publish, because we publish newspapers every month. And they're in-game role-play newspapers, black and white, new issues. And they talk about some of our exploits and some of our RPs and stuff. Chad is amazing. He's such a charismatic guy. As soon as he walks into a room, it's like everyone and their dog comes with him. And that's what happened. He joined our Discord. And when he came, he brought with him a number of other people, like the 5.0 and Requiem and all these other people, right? And when we had a chance to work with these people, it just really taught us a lesson about how roleplay should be conducted and how there's certain things that are acceptable and non-acceptable. Like God modding, for an example. If we're role-playing together, I can't arbitrarily determine your thoughts and your actions. That's going to be up to you. You got to let somebody react how they're going to react. And that goes back to the literary technique of less tell, more show. Just show what you're doing and let the person react. Don't tell them how they're supposed to react. So we started learning from all these wonderful, wonderful content creators about how roleplay should be conducted. But then we looked around and said, where's the standard? I couldn't find anyone anywhere who had done anything major. And maybe they have, so my apologies if I don't know of you. But yeah, I couldn't find anyone. So we said, fine, we're going to do it. And we're going to put our brand on it. And we're going to set up a standard that everyone's going to agree on. So what we did is we put together all the role play rules that we could find on. Like, don't do God modding and What does IC stand for, in character? What does OOC stand for, out of character? How do we justify in character fast travel? How do we justify in character all these various topics? For an example, as the Enclave, we have vertibirds. So when we fast travel, we do so with vertibirds. When the 5-0 fast travels, they fast travel with trains on the rail system. I thought that was the most inspiring explanation because it was unique. We took all these different rules, and then I made a big event. And on this event, the Enclave is hosting like a summit. And we invited all the different factions that I could get my hands on. So that was like the Rights Templars, which came with the 5-0. Mothman Cultists showed up. The Brotherhood of Steel Appalachian chapter showed up. Yeah, and it just goes on and on and on. Different groups that are interested in role-playing, but nobody's really interact with each other. The answer was all the same from everyone. It was because it's difficult interacting with people that don't know how we do business. So we got together, and it was all in character. We as a faction took over the entire server. We had, at the height of it, 23 people of the 24 possible. We took the whole server over, cleaned everyone out, and then a bunch of our troops left to make room for our dignitaries as they came in. And we met in the White Springs. We had people playing music on the pianos. We had people serving food and drink, walking around like waiters. We had a little thing. And so me as the general said, here's who I am. Here's what I stand for. Here's the Enclave is coming back to serve our gracious Americans, to bring you back to the roots of society, to smell apple pie and play baseball on a summer Sunday. That's what we're here to do, and give our people hope again. And gave a pitch, and then everyone else did the same. Hi, I am Field Commander Anders of the 5-0. Hi, I am Moth Maiden Phoebe of the Order of the Lamb. We all explained to each other what our community is and what they stand for. After we cleared some people out, and some people had to log off, some of our troops, the Requiem guy, he shows up because he sees this map. The entire map is like, boom, this big block in the White Springs. And he's like, what's going on? So he shows up there, and he walks up to the conference room we're in, and he says, hey, can I go in there? And you had 3 Enclave guys standing there next to one power armor, pointing guns at him. They said, are you on the list? And he goes, no. He says, then you can't go in. Who the hell are you? Turns out that he's super awesome guy, super great role player from a great role play community. And since then, we set up a meeting, and he's now part of our role play organization. But anyway, going back to the summit, after we had the role play introduction, all of us jumped into a private, out of character conversation, and we discussed our terms of use, what's acceptable practice to enhance role play activity amongst all the communities, to bring more flavor to this big cake. Everyone agreed hands down without objection. And that's why if you go into our Discord, you'll see all these different people from different communities in our Discord there. We host, which is appropriate since the Enclave represents the government, this RPO thing in our Discord. Through that, we now help each other. We do joint narratives with each other. We're helping to rebrand and reestablish the Brotherhood group. All of us work together to make this thing. And now it's gotten to the point where we do collaborative projects with each other. So let's say you want to make a video, and all you got to do is go to the RPO and say, hey, can I get 5 actors who are willing to come and help act in this film that I'm shooting? So we'll go facilitate that, or vice versa. Now we've expanded it to, in the RPO section, we also have different, basically they're like embassies. So each of our allies gets their own little chat text RP, so you can text role play ideas there as well. It just works out really good, and our relationships are better. And as our relationships get better, it just gets really good. Like, I wake up excited to go see what's the next plot line.
Where are you?
I'm right here, Lucius.
And so, the true boogeyman of the Waste shows itself. You think we're the only chapter out there? Maxon's transmission went countrywide, you bastard.
Is that any way to talk to your general? My dear Lucius. That was a lie. Alright, gentlemen. The fun is finished. Make sure you collect genetic samples for Project Scarab. Let's move out of here.
When it comes to role-playing in 76, or any Fallout actually, you'll see many players being pulled towards their favourite faction. Brotherhood of Steel, Enclave, even the NCR. I wanted to look further and find a group that decided to go down their own path, create their very own faction. This path eventually led me to the House of Requiem, a role-playing group centred around vampires.
We are a role-playing faction that takes part in a larger community. Role-players, we role-play, quite simply, vampires. So the way we work is we are a small, semi-up-and-coming faction. So we're really a small group. We don't necessarily have the need for appointed leaders. So we all just operate as individuals, and it comes across more of a club than an organization.
We're very interested in developing unusual niche characters and, what builds we can create and camps that we can build to fit those characters. And once we've kind of fleshed out those characters and made them interesting and really kind of settled into them, the next step was to take them out there and see what we could do with them, whether anyone actually wanted to role play with vampires.
Each one of us have full backstories, and it's even got to the point where, like, in our backstories, how we effectively each met each other leading to current events. There is a lore established within our group. One of the most exciting parts is that we know, and a part of our role play is other established members of the community, like, figuring that out, like, why are they here in Appalachia? What's their intent? Vincent, he's definitely doing introduction of coming to Appalachia in peace, for example, and just kind of making a home for himself in what is essentially just a dangerous world, even for vampires. When I started, I was looking for something like a more unique avenue. Everybody has done the strong factions, like 5-0 New Responders and the EAF, even the Vultures, and they all did them really, really well. I wanted a fresh idea. So when I started thinking about what that fresh idea would be, I looked at some of maybe the lesser known groups and gangs and factions that have existed in Fallout lore. Came across the family, and I was like, that is a neat idea. But over time and discussion and just like brainstorming and sharing ideas and stuff, that core idea evolved into what is Requiem today, which is more of your classic vampire. And I mean, we do also do RP with ourselves. There are a few kind of interesting stories with other members of the greater roleplay community being worked on right now.
It's a mixture, really, I think. I mean, majority of the time, we're not constantly role-playing. We do a lot of just casual playing as well, doing the quests. Not always in character. Sometimes you can slip into character. Other times we have more focused sessions, which are specifically, we set a time and a place and we all go there, and there's a specific narrative that we want to cover during that role-playing session. And in that time, we dressed as our character, we'll be at our character's home or a pre-agreed location. We'll have all the right perks on that make us be that character.
Actually, two very interesting arcs in development. One with Vincent, who is currently in hiding and on the run.
That's right, my character Vane is in an unexpected surprise relationship with General Greyfrox from the Enclave Armed Forces. They met and they've got an instant psychic connection bond, so they are pursuing kind of a storyline of their own.
Grey Fox held like a little get together at the Speakeasy, and Elizabeth went along and sort of we got to know each other. General Grey Fox, Elizabeth and Viv then went into some text RP, and it went from there really.
General Grey Fox said he'd been meeting lots of the other factions, trying to kind of pacify them, saying, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours, we'll take care of you, you toe the line. And when Viv and Liz came in and said, well, we don't really need your profession, we're 200-year-old vampires, we've managed to survive this long without help. And I think that just kind of his imagination. He thought, oh, right, yeah, we've got some people here who are a bit rogue, let's see what we can do with them.
The three of them have developed quite an interesting relationship.
pretty much when Requiem did their first Twitter post, he had received a message from Lieutenant Johns. We haven't done anything yet. They're a very busy group, but like do a project with them would be starstruck, because they are the group that shaped the role playing community that currently exists in Fallout 76. And then, of course, the EAF. I mean, they're the big shiny new toy in the community, and they are extremely put together and well thought out. So anytime in talking to any of those members, I get like a million ideas of things that could happen. The most interesting things about the community is a lot of us lean towards organic role play. So it's wherever the story takes us. And if we happen to come to a point where a collaboration is in favor of the overall story that is the Fallout 76 role-playing universe, then we will go from there.
As we come towards the end of the documentary, I wanted to explore the generalised thoughts of 76 among the Fallout community. And I think one person in particular could tell me at least some of these comments and answers. Juicehead, a Bethesda YouTuber, is a hub for many for Fallout content, mods, Fallout 4, and more specifically Fallout 76 news, and he does get a lot of comments about the game. So I think it's time to talk to him a bit about the generalised opinion.
So a lot of times when I play Fallout 76, I don't listen to it because just playing, not Nuclear Winter, but if I'm just grinding out something in the adventure mode, because I'm recording, I can't play a song or I can't listen to a podcast, so I will put in headphones separate from my computer. So sometimes I'll have like weird interactions where like people will be talking to me and I just don't realize it because I can't hear them. I'm just playing and then like all of a sudden there's a guy there. So I guess this kind of happened once where I was doing that and then I left. Like I just got up, I cleared through the area, I just sat my character there and I left to get a coffee or whatever I did. Like I was gone for 10-15 minutes. So then I came back, I found there was like 5 people standing there, like all with cameras out staring at me, like trying to do poses. And they had like I feel like they got on their most bizarre outfits they possibly could. I was like, wait, what? What happened? Because I was such in a different place at that moment where I had walked away for 15 minutes. And then I was wondering, I was like, wait, how long have they been standing here? People in the community, especially with Fallout 76, like the community is very nice, but I feel like at times it can be very toxic, especially when it comes to Bethesda. Like Bethesda does a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, do a lot of questionable things, but I think sometimes people need a reminder like that's a person. When you're yelling at the community manager or like frustrated about the game but taking it out on one community manager in particular, like that is a person just doing their job. Like they only have so much power. Or even just community members arguing or fighting amongst each other. Like it doesn't really happen in game, but online, I feel like, especially when there's a controversial change or decision, people get very toxic. In this community, more so than some others. A reminder, yeah, there's like a person there. Think about how that might make them feel or might not make them feel, both between one community member to another, even towards Bethesda. And when you're targeting it at a specific Bethesda employee, that could really get to people. Yeah, I occasionally read the comments. Some days I'll read them right as the video goes live, but rarely. A lot of times I'll wait a few days because I feel like it kind of takes like the edge off. Like if there's a particularly mean comment, but it was posted 3 days ago, I don't know, it just doesn't bother me as much. Like today, I was thinking about a video I made a month ago. So I went back and I read through a bunch of those comments today. I think it's kind of mixed, honestly. Like there's some that's Fallout 76 is trash, why are you talking about it? Some I think which almost mirrors mine, where it's like frustration at points, where it's like I want the game to be better than it is right now, or the game's like on the cusp of being pretty good, but then there's like a stupid mistake again. And then other times, like with Wastelanders, I think it was just overwhelmingly positive. I think a lot of people liked the changes, especially the initial quest. It was fun, new content that was free. Like there really wasn't much to dislike. And although you always get those negative comments like, well, blah, 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 Fallout 76 bad, how can you support Bethesda or whatever it may be? I think large in part with Wastelanders in particular, a lot of people are very happy about it. I saw some comments that, which is kind of my perspective, where I'm just not interested in doing a grind for cosmetics. Like, if there's new content also, then I'll do the grind. Like, I'll do the challenges among playing other things. But I've read a couple of comments like this where it's like, I'm not just gonna log on to the game just to do a challenge just for some random skin. I'd rather play a different game that day. It's not, and it kind of makes it feel like a chore in some ways. I think the Battle Pass is a really, really good addition. I think a lot of people, at least based off some of the comments, agree that, like, on a conceptual level, it's just the Battle Pass lives or dies based off what else is going on with the game. If the Battle Pass released with Wastelanders, it'd be awesome. You could play Wastelanders, do a few challenges, get a few free skins. But right now, when we're kind of in a content drought a little bit, it, I feel like, isn't as successful. But still, I know there are a lot of people that just enjoy logging on to do the challenges. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't personally identify with that, and I think there's kind of a split in the community. But I don't think there's many people that outwardly dislike the Battle Pass, at least in the Fallout 76 active player base. I know there are people who maybe don't play the game or don't like the game overall who think a Battle Pass for this game is a bad thing, but I think mostly it's either neutral or positive. I feel like Bethesda has gotten better at correcting mistakes. So, like, they released a bad ammo converter, and then a few days later, the project lead tweeted out, "We're going to fix this," which that's great. And I think they've been doing a pretty good job at, like, responding to backlash or pushback in a way. Like, when was the last time we got, like, a big quality of life feature? I said this a while ago, but I felt like Bethesda had a few, like, cards in their back pocket they could always whip out. If Fallout 76 was in a bad spot, they could do more with the Brotherhood of Steel because it's a hyper popular faction, which they are doing. You could return to Washington, D.C. because all the Fallout 3 fans, and there's a lot of them, could do that, and mod support. Like, mod support could just be an easy lifeline if the player count is below where you want or people aren't sticking around as often. I would wonder if Bethesda has a fixed date internally, because apparently they have an internal build or test of mod support right now. That'd probably be one of my favorite feature additions. For me personally, I love playing mods, and then also a ton of new videos you can make on mods. And with 76, you could turn that up to 11. You could even do, like, mini games, assuming the capability to do that, but like a TDM mode, which you otherwise don't really have. A mod could hypothetically do that, which that'd be awesome. I imagine it'll only be via a service like Bethesda.net. Like, I don't think there'll be a Nexus mods for Fallout 76. I assume it'd be like you have to upload your mod to Bethesda.net, they have to approve it, and then you could use an in-game menu to add it to your server. That's kind of how I expect it to work. I imagine it's one of those things where the potential is there, but then you also have to take into consideration things like security risks or hacking or how that could be abused, or I don't know, with an online game, everything is changed right out of the gate. A lot of Fallout 4 mods should work, assuming there's not any crazy new system. Like, you could just take your favorite Fallout 4 weapon mod, and if the mod author wants to port it to 76, that hypothetically could happen, which day one, you have a ton of potential content.
Fallout 76 is, in a way, a misunderstood game that was torn apart by the gaming media due to its troubled launch, but looking at these players in various communities still playing the game, I can't help but say I'm inspired. Their dedication to this controversial Fallout title gave them a platform where they could experiment, create, and for some, even start careers. I hope you all enjoy my documentary on the Fallout 76 community. I'm eager to get started on my next big project, but I'm more interested in returning back to the world of Appalachia, more specifically the post-apocalyptic world of Appalachia, because as I've been emphasising throughout this doc, there's so much more to tell, there's so many more groups out there to explore, and there's so much more player stories to tell as well. So I hope you all enjoyed, and I guess I'll see you all in the next one, but I'll leave you with this little video by the community themselves.
Hey, my name is Toon. I'm a game broadcaster over on Twitch on the channel Tooniversal.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Brian Gwatney, and I'm the creator of the Omega Broadcast, a Fallout Story podcast.
I'm Bad Company Sarge.
I am Ice Empress 66.
We are the Mothman's Chosen.
Hey y'all, Wasteland Dude here, and I've been playing the Fallout franchise for about 15 years, and I'd like to take a second to tell you why I love Fallout 76 so much.
Fallout 76 is more than a game for us. It is also a platform to explore creativity. Our group came together when one of us asked on Twitter if anyone would be interested in participating in an art show inside of 76. We quickly realized we all play the game the same way. We love launching nukes and working together to take down Scorchbeast queens and complete events as much as anyone. But we also love using the tools given to us in-game to create. From camp building to making short films to spending hours in photo mode at a single location. We don't always know where inspiration will take us when we get together, but we can be certain there will always be hijinks and there will always be fun. Fallout 76 is a game, but for us it is so much more. We are Art Club.
When Fallout 76 was first announced, I was apprehensive, but excited. For many years I'd imagined being able to play a Fallout game with my friends, but what I didn't anticipate was how many amazing communities and friendships would blossom from it, and how much this game would impact my experience on Twitch as well.
The various biomes, new features, and regular updates are all great, but the best part of a game comes from the community. I'm a YouTuber, and I used to make videos on single-player games where I'd only interact with the audience through comments. Now though, I get to cover 76 and actually meet up with viewers in-game, interact with a large community, and have a more connective experience than a single-player game allows. The social aspect helps 76 to stand out from previous Fallout titles, and that's why I love it.
The podcast is a radio drama, dark kind of styling that's centered in the Fallout universe. I mean, I believe Fallout, the lore that's already there, that's been there for years, gives us a great foundation for fans to come in and write their own fiction or to continue the stories of the characters they develop in game, which is kind of what inspired me to create this podcast, along with some other friends who created podcasts before me. Using my in-game character and his life and playthrough after the main story continued, I thought of, hey, let's write my own story. And that's kind of what I did, and I brought a lot of people on to the cast. We've got a few episodes out already, and it's actually picking up and doing really well. I think I love this game so much because of the community development. My very first Fallout game was Fallout 3, and with all the mods you could bring into it with settlement building, and then when Fallout 4 had actual settlement building, and then Fallout 76 having those aspects in there, but then the online community part of it bringing us together. I think that's the one thing I really love about this game, is to see how creative people can be and how we can come together to enjoy something that we all love.
Hello, my name is Clem, one of several moderators and the current Twitter handler of the Fallout 76 Discord. The reason that I love this game is probably ironic, because I actually love this game for the community. Seeing everything that my fellow players do on Twitter and elsewhere really puts a smile on my face every single day. And it's simply amazing watching a community grow and flourish from the struggles I had in the beginning.
I've been a part of Fallout 76 since November of 2018. I started streaming it that first day of release, and have not looked back since. The game has changed and evolved in a lot of different ways, and that means that the community has evolved and changed as well. And the community that I have been a part of cultivating is amazing, and there's so many great things I could say about them. But there's one thing in particular I would like to mention about them, and that is their generosity. And I see this take place in two different ways. One way that they're generous is with their stuff. There's sort of this economy and this culture of just giving things away, asking what people need, crafting things for people. People don't mind giving away some of their best stuff to help somebody out or to make somebody's day and make them happy and to allow them to experience the game in a new and different way. So that's one way that I really see my community step up and what makes them so great. The other part of their generosity is they're generous with their time. There's a lot of people who are always willing to jump in and help somebody out, help make somebody's day by participating in an event they created, or just going through some of the quests in the Wasteland together. And That's what I can say about my community, is just how generous they are, both with their stuff and with their time. I think that's part of what makes this game, Fallout 76, so special.
And I love Fallout 76's open world gameplay. Its photo mode, the camp building, and the character customization. Despite the deplorable lack of hairstyles, I love the fact that you can pose and photograph your characters. You can tell any story you want that way. And even though I play alone often, the unpredictable nature of real people being in the game always keeps it interesting, because there's always that element of the unknown. That's not something you can get from Skyrim or Fallout 4, which I loved, but I can't go backwards anymore after photo mode. The social media community has transformed this game for me in ways I don't think Skyrim or Fallout 4 ever could have, specifically Twitter. It feels like the best example of what social media was made for. I mean, what's better than being able to geek out about the same thing with people who get it from anywhere in the world? And you can't always get that from your local pool of people.
Yeah, 94.
That was great,
First
dude.
time we didn't even all make it through.
I know.
I ended up getting, we had,
It was just me
RM
and
and
Demas.
Demas fought through, yeah.
That's
I
right.
kept apologizing. I'm like, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
That's
Demas." And then I knew Demas was like, yep, he's the fourth.
Yep. he was
There
part
was
of
like
the team from then.
no turn back after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually we basically just bonded
this
after
game.
that, man. Just bonded as
Yeah,
a
and
team.
then we started doing more things with the community and as the Gato, and just kind of went from there. And then we met Luck.
Yeah, and then we met Luck.
Been able to launch a nuke solo until Luck showed me, the method, the training. Oh yeah, I love it.
Definitely.
It's my go-to relaxation game. I love
Yeah.
the people. I've met a lot of good people here.
We praise and follow the one true Mothman. Our purpose is to cleanse the land of the false cultists and the false Mothmen, while also spreading the word of the Moth through our monuments, shrines, and churches. It was vital to us that our group was built upon the pillars of kindness, acceptance, and of tolerance. We want our faction to be a safe space for everyone. Hatred, toxicity, and elitism have no place in the Moth's warm embrace. So if you wish to join us, find us on Twitter or on the Robots Radio Discord.
We are the United Enclave Remnants. We are an Enclave-based player faction that has been protecting Appalachia and democracy since March 16, 2019. Fallout 76 gives us many opportunities to express ourselves, such as events. Shown here is Demolition Derby, where you must destroy a structure in a workshop as fast as you can. Or our holiday events, such as our 4th of July fireworks celebration, the likes of which have never been seen before in Fallout 76. PvP gives us the opportunity to purge the enemies of America, once and for all. And seasonal events like Fastnacht allows the community to march with their fellow patriots. The United Enclave Remnants continues to thrive in Fallout 76, and we are glad to be a part of one of the best communities gaming has to offer.
My favorite thing about Fallout 76 is definitely the community that is behind this amazing game. You don't only have just the content creators and photographers and podcasts and the streamers, but you have an amazing community of people that come together to enjoy this amazing game. And in my opinion, I've made some people who I'm going to be friends with my entire life from all over the world. And it's just an outlet for you to escape from the realities and all that, and just kick back and hang out with your friends and drop a nuke and have an amazing time. And I'm really super appreciative to be involved in this community, and I really care about it a lot.
I met a lot of awesome and talented people along the way. We became friends. It's really one of the best communities in gaming right now, in my opinion. I love the addition of some of these creatures they added. I think they're some of the best in the franchise, and I really love the Mothman. I think he's my favorite. I think they did a great job with the quest. With the addition of Wastelanders and NPCs, they really took it to the next level. I've been playing since launch, and it's been really fun watching this game continue to grow and get better. And if you see me out in the Wasteland, stop by and say hi.
Hi, we're Wastelands. We got asked to do a video, saying why we like
76 and what we do. We're consider ourselves, I guess, content creators. We sort of run a few Discords as well. I like 76 just because, well, Fallout's one of my favourite franchises, and I've played it for years. I find it's a good platform for content creators, and there's lots of varied gameplay. What about you guys?
Well, I'm a big fan of Fallout 76 for the free aim aspect. And just hanging out with the boys and building camps.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just enjoy Fallout because it's probably one of the more enjoyable games that I've played in the past few years. Like, I've ran into many other games that I really liked, but this is the one that probably lasted the longest on my library.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where I think it's the people you meet as well. Like, it's one of those more social games where you meet so many new people and come across some really cool camps and stuff.
I'm Ren, and I consider myself the biggest Fallout fanboy that is currently walking around. It's probably not true. But I love everything about it. I love the lore, I love the locations. As someone on the autism spectrum, Fallout is my super special interest, so I could talk your ear off all day long about it. But I think the important part is that I'm also seriously chronically ill. I have a brain condition. I've had 18 spinal taps to get the pressure off my brain to keep me from going blind or dying. And through all of that, and my hardest times, and my worst moments, and the days when I literally thought I was going to die, I've had Fallout. When I've been scared, I've gone to the Mojave. When I've been desperate, I've gone to Boston. And lately, when all of my life seems to be going to hell, I've gone to West Virginia. And I really can't put words to how much I love it. It feels like I belong in that world. And all this sounds stupid except for the fact that what I really love about it is the community. When I went in for my last spinal tap and I had just been diagnosed with epilepsy, I got an outpouring of support from the Fallout 76 community online and literally First
cried.
question to the neurologist, can he still play Fallout? And that's true. I mean, she knows me well enough that that was what I was worried about, is if I'm on this medication, can I still play Fallout? Because a life without Fallout to me is really no life. Right after I had my diagnosis, it was one of the greatest moments of my life, knowing that I hadn't lost that and that I could keep coming back to the community and to the world and to the lore that I love and tales from the West Virginia hills. So I really cannot thank Bethesda enough for what they've done for me, and I really can't thank the Fallout community enough for being the best gamers and the best humans. I didn't think anybody cared about me. I'm a small person. I'm not a big YouTube personality. I'm not really that important. But knowing that a whole bunch of people with whom the only thing I have in common is Fallout, coming out and saying, it's all right, you're gonna be okay. You know, my Mega Sloth is rooting for you. You know, somebody left me a comment that said, you've dealt with super mutants and, you know, mutant hounds. This is nothing. You've got this. And out of all the supportive comments anybody's ever given me, I think that was the one that kept me going the most. But what I really want someday is Bethesda to know that they more or less saved my life. And thanks to them and to the community. So, Fallout forever.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, blowing like the breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country road.